Welcome to this class on percentages. Now, what is percentages? Percentages is a way to describe a fraction by using just one number. Percentages are, very easy to calculate. This is because we could, just multiply, the fraction by 100%, and then we get the percentage. So it's very simple to calculate. So we will take some examples, and then we will try to look into different cases where we apply percentage in our everyday lives. So let's go. So assuming you have a fraction, say like 3, you have a fraction like 3 all over 5, and then you want to convert it into percentages. Now, if you want to convert 3 over 5 into percentages, you just need to multiply it by 100%, right? Now, why are we multiplying it by 100%? 100% stands for a full case, right? So a full case is 100%. I will explain this in a while a bit better. So here you have 5 divided, you're dividing 5 from 100, which is 20, and then you have 60%. Now another example, again, is a number, say like 6 over 8. What is the percentage, right? So here you have 600, you have 600, 8, and then you say 8 divided from 60, which is giving you 7, and then you take 40, which is giving you 75, so this is 75%, right? We could take another example. So in another example, we could say like 15 all over 20, right? And then, so here, say 15 times 100 divided by 20, and this takes 5, and 5 times this gives you 75%. Now, note something that just occurred, right? So you could see that 15 over 20 is actually equal to 6 over 8, right? Yes. However, on the off, it's very difficult to actually do the comparison. When you see the two numbers, it's very difficult to do the comparison. However, immediately we do the percentage, we can easily see, so 15 over 20 is actually equal to 6 over 8. Now, another example is this first example, right? So we could see that 3 all over 5 is actually less than 15 all over 20. So this also lets us know, like, the fact that we have it in percentages also gives us a good indication that 3 over 5 is less than 15 over 20. This is exactly the use case where, this is one of the main use cases of percentages in everyday life, because it gives us a feel of how much, how big a section is. So basically, if I were to tell someone that I spend like 2 over 15 of my time, or say I spend 7 over 24 of my time, daily, reading a novel. This is, this is quite interesting, but it's not as insightful as telling the person the amount of percent, because then immediately I can tell him, then he's able to okay, so, like a very, very, very much more complicated use case could be if I were to say that I spend like 10% of my if I say I spend maybe 3 over 15 of my time reading. So just a moment, and then we're done. So, yeah. Just a moment. So we're good now. Now, this is what is insightful, right? So, yes. Now, if I say I spend 2 over 15, in this case, I do not want to tell someone how much I earn. And at the same time, I do not want to tell someone how much I spend, really. I mean, the right value of how much I spend, but I just want to give him an indication of what percent or what share, how do I share my income, for instance, right? So in this case, I could give the person in terms of percentages. So if, for instance, I maybe earn like 1,500, this is my total salary. And then say, this is one. And then say maybe out of my total salary, then I decide to use for food, I decide to spend like 100. For my rent, I decide to spend like 900. For maybe other use cases, I decide to spend like 200. And then I decide to save like 300, right? So in this case, this basically adds up to the total, right? Now, I do not want to tell this person my salary, my take-home salary. Maybe for privacy reasons or whatever. But then I maybe want to, give him an idea of how I distribute my salary. And then in my head, right, I know that from a fraction perspective, I know for food, I spend 100 over 1.5. So basically, this is what we did in the last class. And for rent, I spend 900 over 1.5, right? And then for use cases, I spend 200 over 1.5. And then for savings, I spend 300 over 1.5. Now, it's not so insightful for me to tell this person like I spend 100 over 1.5 because, it doesn't really have the weight. For a layman, he doesn't really want to stress, you don't want to stress him. Also, in a working environment, for instance, you don't also want to create so much confusion. So basically, you want to give them just that one number. And this is where you actually change it to percentages. Now you have 100. So for food, now we're converting food to a percentage. So basically we'll take each and every one. Food. So here now we can see right? And then here we could basically okay, so just a moment. Yeah. So here. Oh, okay. No, this is my bad. So here we could see, okay, or maybe we could just do this again. So here we could see that I spend, this is the fraction of food that I spent, right? So I'm just going to multiply it by 100. Now this is 5. And so here I just come and say this 0, cancel these zeros. and then I'm left with 100 over 15. 15, this is supposed to be around 6.7%. If you use a calculator, I mean, you could also use, also break it down. And also then you have the rent. The rent is 900 over 1.5 times 100. Right? So we'd cancel the zeros to, 2 zeros, so 2 zeros. And then we're left with 9 times 100 over 15. And then you have like 3, and then you have 5, and then you have 5 in this, and you get 20, and then you see 60%. Okay. And then you go to the use cases, and then you have 200 over 1.5, right? And then you multiply it by 100, and then you have 1, 2, 1, 2, and then you have 200, and you have 15 divided, right? So here you have something around 13.34%, right? And then you come to the savings, and then you have 300 over 1.5, and then you have 100. So, right? And then you have 100 over 5, and then you have 20%. So now it's very easy for whoever I want to communicate this to understand that I spend 6.67% of my income on food, 60% on rent. Uses for the other uses, I spend roughly 13%, and then for my savings I spend 20%. Now it gives the person an idea. Oh, he spends most of his money on rent, and then the next highest is basically on savings, and then on use cases, and then on food. So it also helps putting these numbers in such a very easy way also helps to be better organized and better to communicate better, and also to be able to like plan better, because then what share of your time, of your effort, of your it makes it very easy to quantify what you're doing. So so this is percentages. We will go on to the next one where we're talking about ratios. Let's meet up there.